Hi, everyone. I'm Andre, and welcome to the Ghostfly Podcast. In these episodes, I'm going to tell you about stories that happened to me, my family, and friends in this place we call the house, which we used to live in. You guys are not going to want to miss this. Thanks for tuning in. See ya. His hands were flat down, right? Who sits like that? So you got to know something's in this house. Something is definitely in this house to make him sit at that table in a stuck position. How you doing? I'm Andre, and this is the Ghostfly Podcast. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you a story that happened to my son. And actually, this is the first event that took place that I've noticed. You guys aren't going to want to miss this, man. I'm telling you, it's a really good story. And might as well jump into it. This house that we lived in, we call it the house, or some people, like I said before, call it the house on Ivy Street. This house is built in 1947, I believe, and at that time it was a 700 and something, maybe 750 square foot house, but we were going to add on like 700 something more square feet, so it was going to be 14, close to 15. So construction was on its way. At our house, we have me, my wife, and at the time my oldest daughter, 3 boys, and our youngest daughter on the way. So as you can tell, there's a lot of activity in the house. You know, we have family members that lives on the block. Shoot, we had 4 houses on the block. Can you believe that? 4 of them. Yeah, as far as family members and with their friends. So you got to remember, the house always had activity, period. Always people running in and out, kids playing, things like that, whatever. But this particular night, I remember I walked in from the living room to the dining room, and I looked and I saw my oldest son sitting on the dining room table, just sitting there. He's on the chair actually, but his hands, he's sitting in a weird way. His hands are like flat on the table. It's a weird stance. Like I never seen nobody sit like that. It was, like uniform, just almost like somebody put him there. Like you don't sit like that. I mean, nobody sits like that. Anyways, he was stuck in that position, and when I walked by, he looked at me and whispered, "Dad, come here," and waves me over. And I'm like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "No, Dad, come here, like that." And he whispering to me, and I'm like, "Dude, you're whispering with all the activity going on in that house?" It was like 8:20 or something like that p.m. At night, but the lights are on, the kids running around. And so I step up to him. He's like, "Dad, I see myself in the mirror, but I didn't move." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I see myself, but I didn't move." I'm like, "Man, what's up?" So he tells me this story that at the end of the hallway is this older sister's room, and I think he said he was arguing with her or something like that. You know how kids do, whatever, but like they're arguing, talking, whatever. And in the hallway right next to her room, there's a mirror to his right. There's a mirror to his right, and it's an old mirror. I know we got it at a yard sale. And the mirror, it was like, had of course brown, but a wooden frame around it, and it was probably like maybe 3x4 in size, but it was a heavy mirror, put it that way. And he said that he was talking to her, blah 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 blah, and when he turned, he looked in the mirror, and his image in the mirror was still facing his sister, still looking at his sister, talking to her. He said the image was still looking at her, talking to her. His lips were moving, and the image waved at his sister like that and turned around, and they made eye contact. I mean, this thing's like looking dead in his eyes, like looking at him, and he freaks, man. He just sits there, and it's like a duel, like a gun duel, high noon, whatever. But they're standing there and they're looking right at each other, bam, like that. And apparently he splits, man. I don't know what he did after that, but that's when I don't even know how long he was in that on the dining room table, sitting there with his hands flat down, man. I mean, his hands were flat down, right? Who sits like that? So you got to know something's in this house. Something is definitely in this house to make him sit at that table in a stuck position. All right. So I remember like later on that night, I went to bed and I'm thinking like, what the heck? That was strange, dude. I mean, that was strange. The way he acted, I've never seen him so scared. And it was just so weird. Like he's whispering to me, right? Like whispering with all the kids running around, whispering, and he's by himself. So I knew something was in this house. Something had to be in this house because nobody does that, and gee, the house is old. I know that. I had to look up the history. I'll tell you about the history of the house later. You guys are gonna love this part. But I'm pretty sure things were happening in front of us, and we didn't notice it. And usually I use a reference like this. I tell people that, let's say you walk up to a cherry tree, right? You walk up to a cherry tree. The cherries are not ripe, so of course they're like green, so you can't see them until somebody points one out, like, hey man, there's a cherry right there. And once that person points that cherry out to you, the green cherry on the green tree, you start noticing them all pop, 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 man, they're all popping up. And it's like, wow, all these cherries were hidden in plain sight. That's how I feel about ghosts, or the paranormal activity, that is. I'm sure things happen all the time around certain people, people, things are happening, but they don't even know because they haven't seen that cherry. You know what I'm saying? So once they see something like that, I am pretty sure that their mind's getting trained to like recognize that something is different there, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, YouTube, if you're watching this, or a podcast, you guys listening to this, man, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, it happened to them, but they don't say anything because, people find it strange, or, of course, people talk about sports or family or whatever events, but who sits around in a huddle and talk about like an experience of like paranormal or a ghost that happened to them? I mean, like right in front of them, right? And that's pretty much why I'm here telling you this, because, man, in this house is very active. With all the kids, things in this house, things happen to each and every one of the kids. I mean, multiple times. And this one, the one that my son saw, we named that the Mimicker, because in this next episode that I'm going to tell you guys, right after this one right here, in the next episode, I'm going to tell you about a story of my oldest daughter, of how she actually had a conversation with one, right? Right? I mean, she's sitting there looking at it, talking to it, because she thought it was somebody else. So you guys ain't going to want to miss this next episode. So thank you for tuning in to the Ghostfly podcast. And hope you guys enjoyed it. This is my first one, and there's more to come, because there's a lot of stories coming up. I got friends that finally came out, people that I've known for years, and finally we sat down and we talked about it. And the way they looked at me is like, dude, are we really going to talk about this? Because things happened to them, and they couldn't believe that somebody actually believes them, right? So you guys aren't going to want to miss these episodes coming up. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. The Ghostfly podcast. See ya.